Banos, who wants to be your commissioner in the city of Coral Gables.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it. This is wonderful to once again be here today. And I thank you for trying to follow me on this shirt issue.
Look,
okay,
folks, this was not planned.
I agree with you, but Brooks Brothers, I think, makes the same thing.
Look at that.
I appreciate you trying to follow my beautiful
you have
look.
Good taste,
right? Very good taste.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So you're in the middle of your election. This is the first time you've run
Correct,
for office.
Yes.
And after serving in South Miami and at Coral Gables on the pension board. Right?
Correct, yes.
And you're a lawyer and a CPA.
Both things, yes.
That's amazing. I don't know what percentage of people in the United States are lawyers and CPAs. But it's
I had a call with the Internal Revenue Service this morning with an appeals officer, and he was actually a lawyer and a CPA. So I got a very good deal out of him because we became a good kindred spirit. So with these Internal Revenue Service, it's just about negotiating and knowing where the law is, but it's also about creating a human relationship.
And in this big picture, it's that connection that you have that when you're with somebody. And when you have these commonalities, right, that people feel this connection. So tell us what the people at Coral Gables, what do they want to feel when they speak to the city hall and to the commissioners?
Look, I've knocked on 5,000 homes all over Coral Gables. I think if you're going to be a commissioner in this city, you better knock on doors, get to learn residents, get to meet them in their place, and get to see what the city looks like, get to understand what each person's issues are. And some of them you can do a lot about, some of them you can do nothing about, some of them they just want to tell you the story of their lives. And that is perfectly fine. That is what, being a representative of others it's part of what you're trying to do in office. And it's an essential part of what of being a commissioner is. So to get to know your constituency, get to understand what they want. I think I would say there's three main issues that the Gables residents are concerned about. I think development and traffic that go hand in hand is the biggest concern everybody has. I mean, it's a broad concern all over South Florida. I think you can find it in any particular city. But I think, we're going through a development boom, in Coral Gables, and we're going through a development boom all over South Florida. And the concern is, you have to create such a historic city as Coral Gables is. You have to create a balancing act, right? It cannot be too high. It cannot have too much. It cannot be too much of a burden on the citizenry. It has to be a situation where we preserve our history and we also create an environment where people can actually continue to live in Coral Gables and preserve what it is like to live in Coral Gables.
Most folks have a tipping point where they're hopeful and that this is good, and sometimes it's that final thing that pushes them to become cynical rather than hopeful. So right now, I know there was a commission meeting last week.
That's correct.
Right, over at City Hall, and the people that were there, what were they fed up with, and what were they cynical about instead of being hopeful about? Isn't this beautiful that's going to happen?
Well, here's the thing. The pandemic has been horrible, and I'll admit that, and many aspects of it. But the one silver lining has been that Zoom has, to some degree, democratized to a larger extent local committee meetings. So while before you may have gotten 50 people, 60 people to show up at a meeting, we had over 200 participants, 215
That's
people
amazing.
Show up at a commission meeting. Like, okay, 5 of them were the commissioners, so maybe 210. Okay, but it created an environment where folks really have a chance to question the commission, to direct their frustrations and their issues towards them. And the biggest issue has been the upzoning of the mile and the upzoning of and modification of zoning all over Coral Gables. I think there's a genuine fear of many residents that we're giving away what makes Coral Gables special. And destroying its very the main artery that everyone has lived here for so many years, and I've lived here for 11 years. Destroying that unique downtown and modifying the unique downtown, it's just one step too far. It's development got already.
At least some people forget that it was probably about 10 years ago, the city, Coral Gables, decided to expand the city hall, right?
Right.
And then it started being built. A new administration came in, correct or wrong, and they canceled the agreement, paid the developer, right? And did they tear down some of the stuff that had been
exactly? And then and now we have a brand new administrative building. Okay, we actually did away with the prior administrative building. We have the police station and the fire station that is there across from Bill Ossery, and now we have opened a brand new one. Now there's an agreement, and we're going to sort of slowly moving the staff from one side to the other. And they just inaugurated this beautiful building, which is something that the city has desired for many years, and which I fully support. But the Gables is in a modernizing phase. Again, every city needs to have its new blood come in, new development come in to actually rebuild its tax base, maintain its tax base. But as I said before, the real question becomes, where do we go too far? And I think, especially the neighbors who lives in the craft section of the building,
just for the people that it's on Lejeune,
well, the craft section, it's a little larger. We're talking about the space between Lejeune and Douglas, really, and all the way down from essentially City National Bank and Alucia, all the way down to essentially almost Burt Road. Okay, yes. That you have that entire neighborhood, and we have had the very dense downtown continue to build up, such as the large developments like the Plaza and Pond Circle Park, which is actually being completely renovated in the very near future, and that is a very, very tall building right next to a little itty bitty house. Okay, just like your house and mine. 1,500 square feet home. And, some neighbors who I've talked to that live right next to that, especially young people that have children, they sort of welcome the notion of, this is an empty lot that was there. And now we're going to have ability to have this mall and this, play and so they like that. If you're the person who's living right next to that in the very corner, I can tell you that lady did not like the idea of having this construction next to her.
So let's talk about Miracle Mile, right? How many are there 50 stores on each side?
Roughly. And look, they do have. I'll be the first one to admit they do have a 40 to 50% vacancy rate, which is very high for the area. But that probably is a byproduct of the construction that happened a couple of years ago that modernized entire spaces, sort of cityscape modernization, as well as the COVID, which has at least closed 4 restaurants that I know of.
So when we look at that and you say, okay, well, what is that going to look like if the height is not given, whatever the developers wanted? So what would that look like in 4 years if the city said, we're not going to do whatever the developers want, whatever that is? And I know that's not going to happen like that. Right. We're not going to do anything. So then what happens to those retail stores, and are people in the neighborhood shopping in those locations?
And that's the $60,000 question that everybody is really asking, right? So is this that's being proposed by the city the solution that's going to help those businesses? I think the failure, and I had a debate last night with the Coral Gables Democrats in which we had an opportunity to question Commissioner Keon, and then I had my other 2 opponents in the race, Kirk Menendez and Alex Pucelo, give their perspective, I guess, on this issue. And I think what I said, and I addressed it specifically to Commissioner Keon, who's going to be possibly voting on these issues, is that in effect what they're trying to do, even though there's a much larger building that is technically allowed on the mile, but it's not economically feasible, what they're doing is they're allowing for a larger building than the one that currently exists. And I personally think that if you have in the periphery of the mile, the actual area surrounding the mile, if you want to build that up, I'm not entirely sure that it's altogether an unreasonable proposition. Okay, we can discuss how high, on the one measurements, whether it's going to include parking, how much parking, all those things can be discussed. But I think the actual Miracle Mile itself, the space between one end to the other on Coral Way, that space is such a unique thing that makes Coral Gables and makes the mile and make the structure a destination place. Okay, and they're suffering from sort of global challenges that have nothing to do with upzoning or rezoning. So we can be myopic. We can't just make decisions because of what currently happens today. I think there are ways to bring business there. So like illuminate Coral Gables, which is occurring up right now, and is bringing thousands of people to Giralda. And I think Giralda is an illustration of how a concept that kept the place small. They kept the area, the buildings in the same unique fashion, and that allowed residents to come in. That Herald and that event to illuminate Coral Gables is really the solution. It was packed this Saturday. I took my family there. I mean, we had to really struggle to socially distance. It was full of folks. So that's what you want.
So, part of what we look at is a lot of people want to hold on to memories and other things as well about the past. College Square is a perfect example down in Gould's. That's down south, folks. And the Avery there, beautiful bird shop.
It is.
And you walk around, they have all these little cottages. At some point, I don't know if those were homes that were there. They're small, maybe the size of the studio, small businesses. And when you go there, you do get a different feeling.
Absolutely.
Right? And when you go to Marco Island, you do get a different feeling. And you go to Key Biscayne, you get a different feeling. And I get that. And when you're over Naples and you go out on Sunday morning and you go to the strip there, I think it's Fifth Avenue, right? And you go there.
It is. Look, that whole area is so unique. Such a beautiful place to hang around. It's a beautiful place to shop, and it is one street that goes from one and two there. Yeah, you have McMansions a few blocks away. The same thing happens in Vero Beach. So just one tiny street that is sort of the place of the birthplace of the area, and we have that in every enclave that was originally South Florida. And I think we also have it in Coral Gables and the Mile, and we should preserve it. I think that's what's unique about it.
I live in horse country, and we fought for 25 years to keep it green as much as we could. We've been pretty successful considering the number of years. And there could be a beautiful riding school for kids. And next door, an $8 million home, right? Correct. So the kids go out and they're the lessons. They have 5 or 10 acres. They go around the ring, and it's really significant. I think whenever you can do that and preserve that, right, we should do that. And there are the Gables has a historic society in South Miami. They're trying to preserve the Civil Martin building it's been 80 years or 100 years. And even when the city was considering redevelopment, which I hear it's coming back, all right, they have to preserve that building. All right, which used to be the library or whatever it was many years ago. And so, and then right down the street at 57th and Sunset, one's on the east side, it's Coral Gables, on the south side, on the west side, it's South Miami.
Correct.
There's CVS that's going up, and I know it's going to be beautiful. And then right across the street, the Crossroads has been there for
forever,
years,
right?
60 years. Right. Gold Cup socks, $1.50 a pair, right? And so there's a place for all of that. So the question is, how do you make it work for most of the people? That includes the property owners who have certain developmental rights.
Look, if you're not sensitive to the perception of the residents and the preservation of that romanticized historic version of what they believe it exists, then you're going to get a reaction that you don't want, and the city may suffer to its detriment. I remember the city of South Miami in 2008-10, if you correct me if I'm wrong, they passed a 5-0 requirement for upzoning, and that had detrimental effects in the city of South Miami. Okay, I remember when that actually happened, you campaigned against a proposition, and to some extent, it has stuck. The Sunset Place shops in this vicious cycle of poverty and I guess poverty is not the word, but of poor development and receivership. So I think you don't want to create a situation where that reaction is so, and people are talking about that, the potentiality of doing that in the Gables.
Well, the former mayor now calls that 5-5 vote a failed experiment,
right? Because he has a detrimental effect, right? There are good projects that could come in that can be vetoed by the one commissioner. But that's what's happening in the city of Coral Gables. There's an active discussion about potentially bringing that same issue into the commission. And the reason that's happened is because there's just a lack of transparency. Okay, there's a lack of understanding on the part of our residents, and if the city commission will allow the criticism, there's a lack of vision that is being offered to the residents. There's no nexus, there's not real understanding, and they may not really have all the answers. I'm not expecting them to, but at the very least, present it to folks in a way that they can visualize it and they can understand what it is versus what has happened with Commissioner Keon and unfortunately the mayor, where, it seems that they just want to bang it in their heads and move on, right? There's no sense of community comment, of buy-in. The issue is you have to give people something to be for. You have to give people something that they can envision themselves walking into. They can understand what, and it could be something as simple as literally painting a picture of what they would like there to be. And they're not going to control what each developer is going to do, but at least you have a sense of, okay, if we do A, therefore B will result in C. Rather, right now, all they're saying is, well, potentially they could build 70 feet, so we're going to allow for this because that's going to be good. But in effect, everybody understands that it means that it will be an upzoning from a practical standpoint to the mile, and they're afraid of what that may be because they have no vision of what these positive or negatives could be. And the answer could still be that people may not like it, right? But at you have to really work at it. And you have to give it all. You have to give it a reason for people to be for something, so they don't react poorly as they have.
You bring up a really good point that in the city of South Miami, in the area that deserves it most, all right? It took 20 years.
I agree, to build a pool.
Yeah, and then a few blocks from there to put up the Madison Square, which just opened, which was between the city and the CRA and the neighbors and the 5-5 vote. The city kept it all over all these years. Finally, it got done, and the big problem was that last vote. Right? and so we can tell you here in South Miami, it didn't work. All right. And it is a problem, puts an undue burden on everybody.
Right? And it has such a look. When I used to live here, one of my things was the South Miami Park. Right, I wanted to fix that park. Wanted to make sure that park really worked for everybody, and it doesn't. Right, it's a good soccer field, somewhat, okay, but it has sort of this ugly area in the entrance, and we have to fight the YMCA to get that done. So it's been a long fight, and I think that is part of what happens when you get a reactionary effect and you don't explain to people and you don't have a buy-in, which is what, going back to the original part of the conversation. That's why if you're going to be a commissioner, you need to talk to residents and you need to get to understand at their level where they are so that you can speak to them and convince them, advocate, create a situation where they're with you in the same fight for the same goal, and you can bring him into the resolution that you're trying to achieve. But you have to give him a reason to be for it, and you have to give him a vision what it's going to be. If you just bang it over their heads, it's not going to happen.
Well, one of the great things that happened with the pandemic is that people got accustomed to using Zoom. And yes, it's not as good as being there, but the reality is that you could still participate on whatever level you want to. So in a couple of months, when people are there, there's going to be the two audiences, right?
Yeah,
the one
have a Zoom audience,
and then you have the other people.
Yeah, yesterday, I think at that time was like I had my phone in my hand talking to them, so maybe I choke a little bit. But I think it gave a chance for people to actually see me as an advocate for their position. And ultimately, as a commissioner, that's what you are. You're an advocate for the constituency you represent, in this case, the interior of Coral Gables. You also saw, for example, my opponents, Mr. Bucello, who was fumbling with his phone. He was, hanging around. He was reading the phone. He was reading from a book. It was a dark area. So you could tell, he was ill-prepared. The poor guy, he's 25 years old, actually 26 years old, I think it is. Well enough meaning kid, but it illustrated, I guess, to his own personal detriment, how probably ill-qualified he is for the office. And it was primarily illustrated by Zoom more than anything else. My other opponent was, nice, a nice guy with a tie, looking at looking at a laptop. He had lit up. You can disagree with him, but at the very least, he had the makeup.
So how many? There's 3 seats that are open, right?
Correct.
The mayor seat and 2 commission seats.
We have a total of 12 candidates running for Gables.
And that's good. The final day of voting is April what?
April 13th.
April 13th.
And you probably have a runoff about 2 weeks later on April 27th, depending on what happens in the races. So you have who I hope will be, and if he takes it as an endorsement, I don't care, who I hope will be our future mayor, Vince Lago, going against Commissioner Pat Keon. You have 7 candidates in the other race, and too long it's really a three-way race between Rhonda Anderson, Tania Cruz Jimenez, I'm sorry, and Jose Valdez Fowley, who is the mayor's brother. I think all of them, are committed public servants, and I wish them the three of them the best.
So let's talk about public service. You've been involved in civic activities and public service for a long time.
And I got 3 in my race, by the way.
Okay,
on my side.
So let's talk about the why you started serving the public. When I started getting familiar with you was when you're on the pension board here in South Miami. So what is that like when you serve the public for no money, right? You do it because you want to do something. What's that like, and how did you decide to do that?
Well, it's like a bug biting. I don't know how to. First, it's all Horace's fault, by the way. Okay, Horace Falou used to be the former mayor of South Miami. He just happened to be canvassing. He knocked on my door just before the Great Recession happened. Great time to
be over by Christmas. Don't worry.
Just before the great time to be managing. I think $30 million at the time for the folks. Look, it so happened that the Great Recession happened. I saw a real need to build that plan back from where it was, to make sure that this pension was there secure for the employees, that it didn't bankrupt the city. So you really feel in a situation where it is your task to help your fellow man. Okay. And I'm sorry, there's no money. There's not enough, there's no compensation to really be able to satisfy that feeling of being able to help others. And yes, it's boring, and yes, it's a financial stuff, and yes, people don't get it. And I understand that, maybe I'm a little wonky with my pension ideas, but it is such a financial burden on cities. Okay, it costs Gables $30 million a year, as to almost $200 million of the last report of unfunded liability. It eats away at the ability of the city to build more parks, prepare for climate change and sea level rise, to be able to control development because they're worried about the ability of taxes coming in. So it has a multiplier effect over everything that the city does. And, my job, as you have pointed out, has been to sort of look at these numbers and focus on the detailed work that is part of, what you have to do if you're in government, if you want to do it well. So why am I doing it? I enjoy it. It's a work of love. It's a work of passion. And my wife said yes. Okay.
And there's the old saying in volunteer organizations, you became the president because you forgot to show up once.
Right. So,
and there are millions of people that donate their time to homeowners associations, the PTA, and the Boy Scouts, and pension funds, and parks committees, right? And that's what makes this this country so good, that you have lots of volunteers wherever that is. By the way, we interviewed one of the folks from Dade County Parks, and you mentioned parks. I didn't know there were 257 parks in Dade County. Let's talk about parks in Coral Gables. All right.
Oh,
so tell us about that.
I love that. I love that topic.
Let's hear it.
So I'll tell you again, COVID still continued to be there. It's a horrible event, has killed hundreds of thousands of people, 1 million people globally. But again, silver lining, folks are out, okay, and about socially distanced in their own, but truly getting to enjoy the outside, the outdoors more than anything else. And it certainly was the case in March and April of last year. And it really created a sense of, all right, do we have open, walkable spaces that folks can enjoy? Do we have a place that it is? So there's a park, which I know on San Amaro, right by that there's a lot there that's about 3 acres that I know Commissioner Lago, future Mayor Lago, has been trying to buy for a long time, which could be a beautiful park for the current residents. There's work that can be done to modernize some of the open spaces we have into more usable parks. Commissioner Mena, who I think it's a great friend and a good support him, has also created an incentive for pocket parks. So there's a park right next to Granada. yes, it's just a plain regular 10,000 square foot lot for of a home, and they've made that into a small pocket park between a few houses. And if you're the next door neighbor, maybe you don't love it, maybe you do love it because it's right next to your house. But you get to bring your dog, you get to bring your kid. They get to go up and down in the space. More open green spaces, more verdant places in Coral Gables. I think I want to continue that effort. I think I want to expand that effort. There's some spaces, especially down Alhambra Circle, that where the whole path that used to be was supposed to be a horse path, by the way, in the very middle of the street. I want the residents to be involved. I want to make sure they take their input, and I want to make sure they're full participants in the process. But it could be a place where we can actually make it a more walkable space where there's not so many people walking on the actual golf course.
You might remember in South Miami, there's a park not too far from here where it's called the All America Park.
I know.
And it's a pretty big lot.
And
people go over there. I see people stop there sometimes at lunch. And you can walk around. A very fond memory for me is when my grandson, who's this big, we were watching it on FaceTime. He gets on his bike for not the first time, but pretty close. And his dad get him started in a park, right? And there's the asphalt sidewalk, if you will, and there he is. He's pedaling for the first time. You can see him driving around and coming back. What a thrill it was in this big, wide open space.
And look, they're the type of memories that make us human, right? The other day, my wife and I, because we love to engage in this tear-jerking exercise, we looked at all the earlier 2 or 3 year old videos of our 6-year-old and a 10-year-old doing the first things that you do in life, and you're reacting to each other. My daughter being 3 and talking. So, look, and those parks and those spaces are the spaces that allow us to build those memories. So yes, building memories, creating and allowing people to have their human story being told and retold from generation to generation is essential to our human condition. And I think having parks, it's key to that. One of my favorite places globally, it's this beautiful park in Nice, okay? And it's a park that actually runs the length of the city and goes down all the way down to the actual water. Now, the park used to be the sewer. It used to be the sewer drain to the entire area. It was a river. It was full of slush. They closed it up. They did a drainage on the park, and now you walk through it, and there's all this sea motivated. Like they have these whales that you can walk through. It has its water spouts. It has these beautiful fountains and flowers going around with it. It is a beautiful walking space that is open to the public. That's what I envision. That's what I would like to see in Coral Gables. And I think, we have many spaces that can actually accomplish that goal.
A year or two ago, I was watching Ken Russell. He would go out with his iPhone.
Right.
And he'd go on a walk at the park. Said, here I am over the park, over by the water.
I watched him.
Yes. and people want to feel good about their leaders. Right. And we have a new dawn that's approaching, with vaccines coming up.
Right.
Pretty quickly in the totality of one's life. All right, you look at it and you say
June, July,
and it's going to be a brighter day. And I think that at some point there are people, myself including, that we're already dancing in the streets. Right? Yes. It's already stirring, in my head.
I think I've told you my Hawaii vacation is booked for July.
Yes.
Okay, I have my plane booked. I have everything booked. Okay, I am because there's a pent up demand for that. People want to have that sense.
And people that live in a city,
right?
They are there in the city rather than the county because they like what's going on there.
Absolutely.
Even if they're mad and frustrated at the moment, all right?
Yeah.
They want to go down to City Hall and you get an appointment and be welcomed, all right, at City Hall. That's one of the things that we like about cities. And we love the county, but it's so massive, right? Versus walking down the street and you say, hi, I don't have an appointment, but could I see this person and this person? And that's what we promote in the cities, and we see that everywhere.
I have a good friend who's an attorney who recently had a development issue with the city of Coral Gables. His name is Ben Alvarez. Hi, Ben. And Commissioner Lago went to him and to try to solve the situation, and he told me that the way he was treated by Commissioner Lago was the following. Commissioner felt like it was a privilege to help him solve his problem. How wonderful it is that you give me the opportunity to serve you as your commissioner. And that was a feedback that I got from Ben from what Vince had done. I want to be able to, and with my goal, when I get to the commission, to have taxpayers and residents tell me that of whatever efforts I've made.
Hold them to it, folks.
Yes,
right?
Yes, please do that.
And people want that. Right? People don't want to be angry at the politicians.
No.
They want to feel a connection.
A public servant means service. This is hard work, and if you're going to do it, better do it, and you better like it, because otherwise you're in the wrong profession or in the wrong.
Occasionally somebody calls, "Hey, Michael, could you call so and so for me?" I said, "No problem. Happy to do that." And there's such a thrill to be able to solve somebody's issue, and they're thankful. And even if you can't solve it, but you go out of your way to try to make that happen, right? Yeah. And people want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want you to repeat back to them what their challenges, and that you're going to try to help them solve that. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I met with one of the residents today, and it's hard. Cuban kid trying to let other people talk, not the greatest thing, listening to folks and getting folks to get them to give you their own story, okay, is a key part of being a politician. And I don't say that as a bad word. I think that is the essential part of politics, to really have a human connection. COVID hasn't allowed for that, and I truly hope that we can actually achieve that.
Well, I can tell you that as I've already had my second shot, and I'm already unwinding.
Yeah, I'm this close to hogging you. Don't worry about
it. And I can feel myself unwinding. And
but this, there's a nice little glass between the two of us,
right? And I can feel it. And the more and more each day goes on, I know more and more of my friends are getting their shots, and so we're getting close. It's like the door's opening, if you will. And
there's hope. Okay. My father is thrilled about the fact that he can actually hang. He's 72. That he can actually hang around and now yes, he's still socially distanced because he could still get people. But what's key is that the most vulnerable population, the folks that are there that are more susceptible to this particular virus, those folks are now being able to actually feel a little more freedom in the way they interact with others.
And as we look back, it's been a year. Yeah. Right. And it's just like, wow, odd year.
March 11th.
And they will be dancing in the street. And there's that famous picture of the soldier kissing his girlfriend in Times Square. That's going to be happening soon.
I tell you, the first day that I had been listening to New York Times in January of last year about what was happening in Wuhan and this and that. But the first day that it became real, there was going to be a real problem in the U.S., was the day before Mayor Francis Suarez was one of the first COVID positive people in Miami. I went to a fundraiser and I gave him a hug. Okay.
Congratulations.
so I had to quarantine for 14 days. So I want to be able to give him a hug again, but now without having to worry about that.
We're going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. Well, we see that city of Miami, and Francis Suarez was in Washington the other day, and he's helping bring big tech to Miami, right? And it was Manny Medina.
It's a good effort.
Right? Manny Medina 20 years ago said, hey, let's do this. He was one that brought eMerge. And all this stuff is happening in Miami-Dade County, and certainly Coral Gables is certainly one of the top affluent and influential cities. And we wish you lots of good luck.
Thank you. Right? Appreciate it, Mike.
And continue your campaign. And folks, Javier Banos sure would like your vote. Remember, early voting starts when?
Early voter starts on March 23rd, which is when all the absentee ballots will go out. And once again, Javier Banos, 305-519-5581, 305-519-5581. It'll be a pleasure to hear from all the residents.
Wow, we're going to wrap it up. Tommy, thank you so much. And Tommy, do a commercial for your show on baseball. Oh, man.
Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
All right. Anyway,
thank you, Tommy.
We are really happy.
What is it that the Marlins do again?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we're going to go watch some tennis. Hey, folks, have a great day, and thanks for joining us. See you around.
Thank you very